there are people who are the captains of the ship. They're steering the ship. And it might be the producers, it might be the directors. You might have too many cooks in the kitchen when that happens. But, somebody's vision of the movie, usually the director, is the one that holds sway. And everybody else is looking to fulfill that vision. Hello and welcome to the Innovative Mindset Podcast. I'm your host, Isolde Trachtenberg. On the show, I interview peak performing innovators in the creative, social impact, and earth conservation spaces who are working to change the world. This episode is brought to you by Brain FM. Brain FM combines the best of music and neuroscience to help you relax, focus, meditate, and even sleep. I love it and have been using it to write, create, and do some of my deepest work. Because you're a listener of the show, you can get a free trial. Head over to brain.fm/innovative mindset to check it out. If you decide to subscribe, you can get 20% off with the coupon code Innovative Mindset, all one word. And now, let's get to the show. Hey there, and welcome to the Innovative Mindset Podcast. I'm your host, Isolde Trachtenberg. Thank you so much for being here. I want to talk to you today about something that is really on my mind a lot. I have a really good friend, my friend Dan Kozak, who uses something he calls teleparables when quotes or writing or plots in television shows or movies apply to real life. He uses them as examples. And I've been doing this with my clients, private clients and organizational clients for years, because if you've seen the movie that the person is talking about, then you more easily understand what's going on. So I often use the movie and TV industry in my explanations. And today, I want to talk about the emperor having no clothes. So you know that I talk a lot about and I explore the notion of innovation. And I believe innovation should happen from the bottom up as well as the top down. I think every person in an organization can and ought to be on the lookout for ways they can improve things, ways they can innovate, ways they can enjoy what they're doing, ways they can tap into their unique creative genius, ways that they can have their ingenuity blossom, both, in your work and in your life. And so let's say you are working for an organization and you see that they're going down the wrong path, that they're just not doing it right? And so the question then becomes, do you tell someone, hey, the emperor isn't wearing any clothes? And if so, how? How do you talk about that within your company and organization? And if you're a leader and you see that this organization is going down the wrong path, like you thought it was going to go one way and it's time to course correct because it's just perhaps the project has taken on a life of its own and it's not going where you thought it would go. And today I'm going to talk about how movies and television shows really illustrate that and allow us to see how we can make those statements, make those emperors have no clothes statements in an effort to improve what's going on. But first, I want to tell you that today's episode is brought to you by Brain FM. It's the app I love best in the world. I use this app to meditate. I use it to fall asleep. I use it to supercharge my creative output. I use it in technical work, whatever kind of work I need to do. I'm having to replace my earbuds because I have to recharge them so often because I use this app for just about everything. And if you want to try it, I invite you to head over to brain.fm/innovative mindset and you can get a 20% discount if you use that code Innovative Mindset, because I love it so much that I became an affiliate. And because I'm an affiliate, if you do decide to get it through my link, not only will you get a 20% discount off the app, but I might get a little bit of change from that as well. So I just wanted to tell you about that this is what is presenting the app to you today. I mean, the episode, my brain. I promise you I'm completely sober. I've just had some vegan ice cream today. So let's talk about this notion of the emperor has no clothes. What do we need to know? We need to know that we need to be the person who, despite the fact that there might be a leader telling you, hey, this is how things are going to be, that instead what you might want to do is say, what if that's not the best way to do that, right? I mean, that's one of the things that we want from our people. And I hope that if you're a leader and you're listening to this, you really need to think about it in those terms, right? You need to, I've said this recently, actually, that if you're a leader, you need to disabuse yourself of the notion that you get to be jealous of the people who work with you or who work for you. You don't. Your role is to support them in doing what they need to do, and also to stay open to their commentary, to their feedback, because they know their jobs better than you know their jobs. So I want you to think about that as, if you're a leader, as we go through this, because this is a sort of a two-way street that we're developing here. Okay, so if you are a member of an organization and you see that there is something that needs to change or that needs to be course corrected, you might be very, very nervous to make sure that it is course corrected, right? Because you might be going, I'm just one person and I'm nervous to talk to anybody about this. And I totally hear you, because often leaders aren't ready to hear from someone who is part of the team. And it's changing. Nowadays, leaders are learning a lot more about how to stay open to feedback, to critique, and also to those points in their project management where they could get a little bit more help, where they could stand to get feedback. The same thing happens in schools. You know, over the last 20 years that I've been working in schools, we've gone from a paradigm where teachers are the authority figures. They're the ones who are supposed to know everything, and they're passing that knowledge and wisdom down to their students, to one that is sort of a paradigm of exploration, where teachers are no longer the authority figure. They're a guide. They help students get to places, but they don't necessarily purport themselves to be authorities anymore. They're not the end-all, be-all of all knowledge. Instead, they and their students explore together. And that combination of being explorers together, whatever you're learning, makes learning easier. It also makes teaching easier, because it lets teachers de-stress a little bit, because they don't have to be the font of all knowledge. Instead, they get to explore with their students and see where it takes them. And when I do my workshops with companies and organizations, if somebody asks me a question that I don't know the answer to, that's my answer. I don't know. Let's take a look. Let's see if we can explore it together. And if there's no time to do that, I'll say something along the lines of, well, at the break, I will look it up for you, and let's see if we can figure it out after the break all together. But anyway, here's what I want to actually sort of focus on, and that is movies and TV shows. I know, it sounds a little weird, but it works. Let's talk about adaptations. Let's talk about movies or TV shows that we thought would be amazing adaptations of their original source material that just fell flat. And why? Why am I talking about this? Because think of making a movie as a huge project. I mean, making a movie, the movie business is a business, right? It's why it's called the movie business. But let's see if we can sort of lay the movie business on other organizations and companies. There are people who are working all the way sort of at the bottom of the hierarchy, people who are doing production assistance, or people who are doing the catering, people who are doing the running around. And I like to think of those people as being equally important as the producers and the directors, because without the people who are doing the work of setting out the tables and the chairs and decorating the sets and things like that, you're not going to have a movie, right? So to me, every member of the team is equally important, because they're all serving specific functions. But there are people who are the captains of the ship. They're steering the ship. And it might be the producers. It might be the directors. You might have too many cooks in the kitchen when that happens. But, somebody's vision of the movie, usually the director, is the one that holds sway. And everybody else is looking to fulfill that vision. And in fact, Chris Voss in his book, Never Split the Difference, for a second I couldn't remember what it was. In his book, he talks about the commander's intent, and that is a plain language, result-oriented phrase, right? So by the end of making this movie, you will have a faithful adaptation of this book, let's say. Or you're going to take this movie into a completely different direction from the book, but X is going to happen by the end. And that's sort of the commander's intent when it comes to the movie, the vision that the director or the producer or whoever is in charge has for the making of that film or television show. And there are times when things work brilliantly, where you look at something like the BBC adaptation of Jane Austen's Pride and Prejudice with Colin Firth and Jennifer L., and you go, yes, that worked great. And I can think of other ones too, but in fact, if you can think of other ones where the adaptations worked brilliantly, that they're awesome, I'd love to hear from you about that. Let me know what you think there are. And then there are times when it does not work, right? Oh, here's another great one that I love, and that is the, goodness gracious, James Corey, which Daniel Abraham and Ty Frank chose a joint pen name, and that's James S.A. Corey, wrote the Expanse series of books, and there's an Amazon series called The Expanse that's going into its 6th and final season this December, and it is a brilliant adaptation of the series of books. And the world is complex. We now have the technology to really show the science fiction, the ships, the worlds, the way things run. It's brilliantly done, and I highly recommend it. And the point is that they kept a really faithful sort of interpretation of the books, but also they did it really well. And then there are things like The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen by Alan Moore, which, by all accounts, did not work. There were high hopes for it. They had some great cast members. They had all sorts of stuff going in, and it just didn't work. I'm hearing the same thing about Cowboy Bebop, and that's a bummer to me, because I'd like to think that it would work great. Another one that did not work is David Lynch's Dune with Kyle MacLachlan and Sting and various other people, and you look at it and you're like, yeah, that did not work. They did not manage to not only not do a faithful adaptation of the book, but it kind of went all over the place and was really hard to follow. And I've read the books and loved the books and was really bummed about that. Another one that did not work is Bonfire of the Vanities by Tom Wolfe. The book is great. The movie, not great. So the reason I'm talking about all of these is I didn't want to talk to you about just what I think works. I checked in with my Facebook people and my peeps on their ideas and what works and what doesn't work. They provided me with a bunch of great ideas about that, about what works and what doesn't work. And I've talked to you a little bit about all of those, the ones that they've mentioned. There are other ones, and the point for me is that when it's the vision of the writer or the director, and that is the goal that you're going for in a movie, if it works, that's great. But what if it's not working? And what if you are a production assistant and you just look at that and you go, oh, crap, it's just not working. And you are the one who has to go, the emperor has no clothes. This vision, it's going to suck. And I am sure that there is no production assistant out there that's saying that, right? And then I have to wonder, why not? Why do we not have someone who is the person who is sort of charged with figuring out whether or not this is working? And the director may or may not have a great vision, but they may also not be meeting their vision, right? So even if they have a great vision, they may be falling short, and there's no one there to tell them that. And they have something called a continuity supervisor or a script supervisor, someone who, for example, says, oh, you were wearing a blue shirt the last time we were filming this scene, and now you're wearing a black shirt. we need to make sure that the continuity exists. Or you were holding your coffee in your right hand, but all of a sudden you're holding it in your left hand. And I'm sure you've seen movies where they have these little goofs where the person's hair was up in a bun, and then 5 seconds later it's down and nothing's happened. Why this person has their hair down all of a sudden instead of in a bun? But it's because the continuity person didn't manage to figure that out, right? So the question that I have is how does that work? How does the continuity expert, how does the supervisor for continuity figure all of that out and make sure that that continuity exists? Does that make or break a movie or a TV show? No, it doesn't. And yet we have so many examples of when you think that a vision that you expect it to work, and they spend hundreds of millions of dollars trying to make it work, and it just doesn't work, right? And so what if the vision sucks? Who would say it? Who would look at the director and go, I'm sorry, but your vision for this, your goal for this, it's terrible. But yet, what if they could? I mean, there are a couple of different ways to look at this, right? Would anything ever get done if everybody felt they could say something, right? Oh, this stinks. This is terrible. You're not following the book. You've gotten away from the book, or whatever's not working. You have to have that moment where you go, you know what? It's more worth it to me to say something on behalf of this project than perhaps stay in the good graces of the boss. And that is tough, and I recognize that. And, it's funny, I quote this a lot from the movie Star Trek V, which was not a good movie, and it had so many flaws. And yet, there's a moment in it that I talk about a lot with all of my clients, and whenever I do a workshop, we end up talking about Star Trek V. So the crew of the Enterprise ends up going to... they go to the center of the galaxy. Woo, that's so awesome. They get to the center of the galaxy, and in the center of the galaxy, there is this being who everybody who's already there on this sort of planet that sits at the center of the galaxy, which, yes, I know now, apparently we all know that there's a black hole in the center of our galaxy, but it doesn't matter because in the movie, there was a planet sitting at the center of our galaxy. And on this planet, there are several followers of this being, and they all believe this being is God. And so this crew of the Enterprise is there, and they're all chatting, and they're all going, oh, okay, let's go see God. And God finds out that they have a starship. And God starts going, you have a starship? Bring me the starship. Bring it here now. I must have the starship. And everyone is like, bring God the starship, bring God the starship. And Captain Kirk kind of goes, excuse me, what does God need with the starship? And I've always loved that moment in that movie because he's the one who goes, wait a minute, the Emperor has no clothes. What's going on here? And it's easy for him because he's the captain to say, I'm going to ask that question. So he already has that confidence from having captained starships himself, from having led many people. And so he feels that confidence, and he's the only one who does go, excuse me, what would God need with a starship? You're the supreme being, right? You're omniscient, you're omnipotent. You should be able to get whatever you want. And yet you're making us give you a starship. So that's raising a red flag, and I'm going to say something about it. And that starts the final battle, and all sorts of other stuff happens. But the point is, he had the confidence and he had the awareness. And you know me, I talk about awareness a lot, but he had the awareness to go, yeah, there's something wrong here. And not only am I aware that it's wrong, but I'm going to call this person out about it. And so that becomes the next thing. How do you build the confidence and the self-awareness to say something? Some of it is, do you trust the people who are your bosses? If you trust them, then it should be pretty simple to go to them and go, hey, I have some concerns. And if you don't trust them, then you might be watching a project go down in flames, which would stink. Let's call it what it is. But I'm not saying put your job in jeopardy by saying something, but see if there is a mechanism to talk to someone about what you're seeing. And on the leader's side, leaders, I'm here to tell you, you have to have a mechanism for your people to be able to come and talk to you about the things they think that need to be addressed, that might be going on, that are wrong, or that need to be fixed, or need to be modified or amended. And if somebody comes to you with essentially, excuse me, why does God need a starship? You need to perk up your ears and you need to listen to it, because it's crucial for us to be able to ask those questions as the employees, as the people on the project doing the work of the project. We must feel like we can do that, right? And when we have these continuity issues, for example, in movies and TV shows, we need to have, again, a way of talking about it. Now, with the continuity person, they're going to be like, yeah, you're not wearing the right kind of shirt, or you're standing on the other side of the room, or whatever. That's their job. The script supervisor is supposed to make sure that what is written in the script is said in the script, unless you're allowed to improvise or being encouraged to improvise. In a company, there isn't someone necessarily who's charged with, oh, I'm here to make sure that our vision is being stuck to, right? Because the CEO is not always going to be the person who does that, and it would be great if they were. The COO, the Chief Operating Officer, might also not be that person, but someone needs to be. And I wonder if we need to start thinking about certain companies and organizations having a person who is responsible for sort of being the voice in the ear of the CEO to make sure that the vision is the right one for this organization or company, and that they're following the steps to get to that vision, to make that vision reality. Because when you look at David Lynch's Dune, for example, yeah, you get to see Sting in little blue sort of bathing trunks with wings on them, which is a little weird, but it doesn't necessarily give you what you wanted out of the movie adaptation of these books. And I could talk a lot about the Lord of the Rings movies, for example. I'm noticing I'm talking a lot about science fiction and fantasy, but there are a lot of things that are being adapted. And I personally am not a huge fan of the Lord of the Rings movies. And yet they did some things that I thought were of a benefit. In the books, women play such minor roles and don't really have much to do. Yet in the movies, they kind of realized, yeah, we should make women a bigger part of all of this. And so women have a much greater role in the movie versions of this rather than in the books. And the same kind of thing, you can look at the Harry Potter series and look at, are they sticking to the books? And some directors went, yeah, we're not going to do that. And some went pretty faithfully along with what the books did, so faithfully that movie number 6 is just a slog. It's just, you're just slogging through the first part of that 7th book. It's just, oh, it's bad. And I feel like it's a huge, gigantic setup, and maybe it's not movie 6, it's the penultimate movie, whatever it is, I don't even remember. But I just remember sitting through it going, this is just one big, huge setup, and it's taking forever. And so there are times when we know it isn't working, and probably the people on the movie knew it wasn't working. And maybe the editor of the movie was kind of looking at it going, yeah, this is long and it's involved and I just don't see it happening. But it's not my job to really say anything. I am being told how to edit it, and that is what I'm gonna do. And on these movies, there are hundreds, maybe thousands of people working on them. So it's not like you have a lot of hierarchy developed to and procedures developed to where someone who's seeing this and going, oh, this is such a mess, is going to be able to get to the right person and say, you know what, you're making a mess. You're just making a mess. Let's stop that now. And that's hard because, of course, again, there is no mechanism for that. And so I guess this is my call in thinking about it for a mechanism in companies and organizations where you check in with your people and you go, what is it that we're doing that is working, and what is it that we're doing that we could be doing better or differently? And if you have that for your people, if you have a process, and I'm going to delve much more into this next week when I talk about how to lead teams of creatives in a business or an organization. But I encourage you, if you're any sort of leader, start thinking about that. If you're leading any kind of group, start thinking about mechanisms for them to tell you what could be done better, what's going well, what's working for them, and what could be done better. It will help. It'll help movies and television shows a ton. And it will also help, well, organizations and companies and any group that needs to work together, right? Because when we look at these subpar adaptations and we just, oh no, they did it. Wouldn't it have been cool if someone had been able to go, this did not work. And this is not working, which is even better because it's still in process and we can still fix it in a way that the director won't take poorly or badly. And again, the people in charge have to be open to that. And I don't know how, I want to think about that. And I'm going to be exploring that in the next few weeks because I think it's an important topic. How do we get ourselves the processes and procedures that will help us align with being open to and hearing from people who are doing the jobs, boots on the ground, who can come to us and say what's working and what isn't. And if we do that, then we will have a much easier time of keeping all of these things straight and staying on target. Because otherwise, it's easy to get lost. It becomes a morass. Ideas become a morass. You start losing the thread. You know, it's like you're in a labyrinth and you need that thread, Ariadne's thread, to help you so that you can go into the labyrinth, do your business, and make your way back out safely. And it's crucial. It really is. So the more you have that thread of the vision and the more you have people around you helping you make sure you're staying on track and helping you course correct if you get off track, the easier it will be to fulfill the vision of movie, TV show, or company or organization. I hope you've enjoyed today's episode. This is Isolde Trachtenberg, and if you are liking the show and you're liking the direction it's going, which is really an exploration of innovation and its elements, the elements of innovation, what it takes to innovate so that you can stay on the leading edge, I would love to hear from you. I would love it if you would leave a review of the show wherever you listen, if it has a mechanism for leaving a review. Honestly, I wish more platforms allowed reviews. There are a few. The biggest one, of course, is Apple Podcasts, but it would be really cool if some of the other ones were to develop ways of leaving reviews. Right now, if you listen on an Android, for example, you can't leave me a review on Apple Podcasts unless you have an iTunes account. And that's a bummer for me because I would love to hear from you about what it is that you're thinking about the show. But it would mean the world to me. If you can leave a review, I would love it if you would. Until tomorrow, this is Isolde Trachtenberg reminding you to innovate by being kind, being creative, and being bold. Thanks so much for joining me today. I really appreciate you being here. Please subscribe to the podcast if you're new. And if you like what you're hearing, please review it and rate it and let other people know. And if you'd like to be a sponsor of the show, I'd love to meet you on patreon.com/innovative mindset. I also have lots of exclusive goodies to share just with the show's supporters there. Today's episode was produced by Isolde Trachtenberg and is copyright 2021. As always, please remember this is for educational and entertainment purposes only. Past performance does not guarantee future results, although we can always hope. Until next time, keep living in your innovative mindset.